Have you ever been in a room full of people and felt invisible? That no one could see you? Hoping that someone might notice you? Maybe you've experienced the opposite, standing in front of a group of people wishing nothing more than that you could vanish from sight. I've been in both of those situations before. I've stood in the corner of parties as a younger man hoping that some young lady or another might notice me, knowing deep down they never would. Don't feel too sorry for me, I found a good one in the end. I've also stood on stage with everyone looking at me, waiting for me to say something and thinking that the words I have to say are inadequate, rambling, nonsensical, hoping that a fire alarm might ring so that no one has to listen to me preach that day. There is so much in the passage that we've read together today from John chapter 9, and I just want to pick out a couple of things, and the main one is about being noticed, it's about being seen. But let me start with something else. Jesus and the disciples, they're walking along, they see a blind man, and the disciples, fishermen and tax collectors, immediately get into a theological debate. They've been around Jesus for long enough already that's rubbed off on them. They want to debate, they want to discuss whether this man is blind because of his own sin or his parents'. Jesus dismisses them though. Disability is not the result of sin. We should never assume that a person is disabled because someone has done something wrong. Jesus' concern is not for their theological debate, it is for the man whom he heals. The more interesting bit for me is the reaction of this man's neighbours. They cannot believe it's him. Surely this can't be him. And I don't know how long he's lived near them, but the simple fact that he was blind and he can now see has made him unrecognisable to them. Isn't that sad? When his neighbours looked at him before, what they saw first and foremost was a blind man. Their interactions with him had been so focused on his disability that they saw nothing else. He may have been the one who was blind, but others struggled to see him. They just saw that disability. All the disciples saw was sin. And Jesus' act of healing wasn't just about bringing sight to the man. It enabled others to see him for who he was. It restored to him a place in society, value and worth which had not been given to him because of his disability, which is incredibly sad. And just as Jesus didn't care about the theological debates of the disciples, neither does the man care about the theological debates of the Pharisees. As they are disputing amongst one another whether Jesus has sinned by healing on the Sabbath, the blind man says, whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. I think there's a lesson or two here for all of us. Firstly, that theology, understanding God better, is important. Even debating it and arguing it at times can be useful. But it should never stop us from heeding his call to love and care for one another. If we are so caught up in our debates that we leave the objects of those debates, people made in the image of God, by the side of the road while we argue about them, rather than ministering to their needs, we've got something incredibly wrong. And secondly, we all need to look beyond the first glance, to see people for who they are, amazing creations, each and every one of us, made in the image of Almighty God. We need to see beyond stereotypes of disability or age or race or social status and see the person, unique and loved by God. And make sure that they know that they, like every one of us, is unique and loved by God. Tomorrow we're going to be reading together John chapter 10, that's all of it, verses 1 to 42.